So we're trying something new today. We're actually live streaming this over the internet. I don't know if anyone's actually watching, but we are streaming. So welcome to those people if you are watching. As I've mentioned today, I'm Tegan McBride, Sustainable Agriculture Officer from Reef Catchments. This is the National Agriculture Project. It's funded by the Australian Government under the National Land Care Program until June 2019. There are actually a number of components within this project over the 10 months I think we get to complete it. Initially, we're starting a consumer demand survey, which has actually been sent out. It's on our Reef Catchments website. We are encouraging consumers all throughout the Greater Whitsunday, so Mackay, Whitsunday and Isaac regions to complete it, not just people who are heavily involved with regional food, but or regional produce, but we really want to understand how the consumers in the region are spending their money on food, what percentage that are going to directly to farmers, and what percentage they're spending on regional produce in other, small grocers and that type of thing. We'll close that off around, I think, December, and then we'll communicate those results. At the end of the consumer marketing campaign, which is also a part of this, we've got quite a significant amount of money to run out an advertising campaign to encourage local consumers to purchase regional produce. Then we'll run this survey again and see whether that's had any impact. Another component which you're here today for is a total of 6 workshops for food producers. So there'll be 3 marketing workshops. This is the first. This is more theory, and then we're going to get into more practical applications later on. There's also 3 climate adaptation workshops being held, one of which is the annual soil symposium, which will be held here in this room on the 23rd of November. If you'd like to attend, which we highly encourage you do, you don't just have to be someone that's participating, that's really interested in soil science. If you're also interested in climate adaptation, this will be a fantastic workshop for you to attend. We're going to really find out what's expected with climate change and some adaptation strategies to be able to deal with that. If you'd like to register, you can go and see our Regional Agriculture Land Care Facilitator, Julian Kaziski. The final part of our project, I've mentioned, is a regional advertising campaign. It will also include a regional bus tour, which is actually something that Reef Catchments was involved with the Greater Whitsunday Food Network this year and the year before. So this year we went to Yungala, and next year we could be coming to your place. So if you get involved in these projects, then you might get to continue on. The information today is designed to stimulate your thinking about your story. The workbook provided and the follow-up workshops over the next few months will assist us to work through this implementation together. Some one-on-one time will be available to growers who commit to the duration of the project with me, and that includes attending all 6 workshops. You can either attend in person or watch via webinar. Wearing all the hats of a farmer, including production, harvesting, accounting, HR, deliveries, marketing, can be isolating. I appreciate you taking time off farm today, and working together is really what it's all about. Together, you can get together in your groups, like in Yungala or Serena and or in Airlie Beach, and watch these webinars together and help each other out. Hopefully there will be value in this process for individuals, businesses and agriculture in the Mackay Whitsunday region as a whole. So I'd like to welcome to the stage our guest from the far north. Michelle Beltoner is the Human Resources, Public Relations and Marketing Manager for Mungalli Creek Dairy, a family-owned business that's been recognised for their achievements at both a local and state level. Most recently as Regional Innovator in the 2018 Tablelands Business Excellence Awards. Prior to working with Mungalli Creek Dairy, Michelle ran her own PR consultancy facilitating biodynamic and organic events across Australia. Michelle is passionate about people, good food, organics, biodynamics, connecting consumers with producers of high vitality, ethically produced food, and of course, seeing rural towns thrive. There is a lot to love about the Mungalli brand, their values, and of course, their delicious dairy products. Thank you for taking the time out of your many roles to share your story with us today.
Oh, it's just there. Thank you. Oops. Technology, probably not my forte, but thanks for your patience. So it's a great pleasure to actually come down and see your region. It's a long time since I've been in the Mackay region, and I wasn't connected with what you guys are actually doing. And I think you've done a fantastic job. From what I have seen, I've had a look at your Greater Whitsunday Food Group site and all the businesses that are associated with that. I went down to the markets with Tegan yesterday, and I've just heard about your plans, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job of pulling together people, pulling together farmers. It's really hard to get farmers together because they're busy. They wear many hats, and I just take my hat off to you on what you've achieved so far. I think you've done a fantastic job. And the presentation this morning is about sharing our journey so thus far, and then the one this afternoon is about different things that we've implemented. So I hope you find some really useful tools and tips that you can actually take back into your businesses. In our region, where in North Queensland, the number of dairy farms has declined by 90% in the last 20 years. Rob Watson, who you'll see shortly in my presentation, I said to Rob the other night, I said, how many farms were in the district when you were growing up? He said, oh, about 350. We're down to 44 farms. So the dairy industry is definitely in interesting times. And so as dairy operators, we need to be smart about what we do, how we do it, so that we can actually live on the land and create a sustainable return. At the moment, a litre of water costs more than a litre of milk. Yet, of course, it takes so much more effort to produce that milk. And we have the fun dynamic of the Coles and Woolworths of the world devaluing milk with dollar milk. So for Mungalli Creek Dairy, I see that our story relates to looking at adversity in an industry. The dairy industry seems to have always, since I've been in the picture, I've only been in the picture since 2004, but since I've come along into that industry, there's always seemed to be challenges. When I look at our family business, we met that challenge with innovation and met that challenge by going, what can we do to actually stay on farm, be sustainable, get a better price point? And that's what our farming is about. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So obviously the first challenge that we had was back in 2000 when the industry deregulated and the price of milk dropped below the farm gate price. The price of production. So we had two families living on farm, and it wasn't sustainable for both families to stay. So we had to find solutions. We obviously have, and we'll talk about that a bit more. Our business now supports 9 family farms, and we have supply from 20% of the 44 remaining operational dairy farms. Obviously all the small suppliers, a lot of big players out there, but I think it's still significant. It tells a story. And we've grown year on year, and we can command 30 to 40% more than local branded milk at the checkout. That's one of the key points that's really important for you guys to be sustainable. And I'm not saying that we have an easy journey and that we don't still have struggles and sometimes wonder how we're going to pay bills. But I think that's a really important point for you guys to take home, that the more that you can sell your provenance and your farm story, you'll get a better price. And if you get a better price, you know, you can have more time with your family, you can create better sustainable outcomes, and that's what today's about. So this is the picture on the left, that's our herd, and we look out to Mount Butterfree, Queensland's highest mountain. So we're in a wonderful position for our product, but also for what we believe in as a brand about wanting to produce a pristine product. And as I share the slides, I'll go into more of that. And if anyone's got any questions along the way, we'll have a 10-minute question time at the end, and more than happy to answer anything then. This one's for Dale. He was asking me when I was down at the markets yesterday about pinto peanut. This is not how the farm looks at the moment. When we do the presentation this afternoon, you'll see a shot taken from a similar position, and it's looking very different at the moment because of the drought. But pinto peanut is part of our sustainability strategy with how we farm and how we grow things. And Dale was asking about getting some supply. I think somebody's linked him up, but if he can't get some, I'll definitely help him out, because farming is about working together and helping each other. If we all farm better and we produce better products more sustainably, we all do better. This is L&J Falls on the, is that your right or left? Somebody help me out. I'm not good with rights and left. On your left, and this is the Beatrice River here on the right. This is an aerial view going over the farm via helicopter, and it's a bit shaky, so it's not the best photo, but you can see we're in God's country. We live in, you know, we're in the land of waterfalls and rainforests. We've got World Heritage rainforest that surrounds us on 3 sides. So all these things define our story and where we are and our provenance. So today I've got a bit of a structure both to help you and me to stay on track. So I'm going to go through the origins of our farm, the importance of securing our future. If you're in farming, I think you've got to really think about that, and think about it in a way that both fits your values as a family and your passion. I'm going to talk about our vision and values and how they flow through into what we do. I'm going to talk about how we pioneered tropical biodynamic dairying, some of the ways that we have shared our story and our journey, but probably more of that this afternoon, where we are now and what's in the next chapter. So, oh, that slide's in the wrong place. I'm wondering if we've got different versions, but that's all right. So, I don't know if that's going to, do I have to push something special for that to play, Tegan? She's going to wave. This is a video which we may or may not play now, depending on if I can work it out, which gives you a little bit of an insight of the feel of our farm. Do I? That's okay. Sorry? We can play that later. It's all good. But that gives you a little bit of a snapshot of our cows and our chickens. We are predominantly a biodynamic dairy, but we also do pastured eggs. So that's part of our diversification and business mix. Okay, so how do I fit in? As Tegan said, I'm passionate about health and a food advocate. I didn't come from a farming background, even though I went to an agricultural college to do my business degree in hospitality and tourism. But that's where I met plenty of farmers and developed a love for regional life. I ended up on the Atherton Tablelands due to pursuing some of my nutritional studies and my desire to learn about health things. And I had heard that biodynamic farming has produced the most life force in food, and so that certainly piqued my interest. I became part of the Mungalli Creek Dairy story 14 years ago when Rob Watson and I became life partners. So Rob's there on the bearded one. So Rob and I both share a passion for biodynamics. That's what connected us. We also have a really strong passion for health and vitality. And biodynamics is actually energetic farming. I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's so much more than what you see. And it's got such an important thing to bring. And we only share a very small part of that in our current story. And I have a vision to bring some more of that story in and to share some of those gifts that Rob and I have that we don't talk about much, except for in small circles, into our story and our brand. But not yet. The younger generation think it's all too much like gobbledygook and say, you know, just keep it simple, Dad. Okay, so the origins of our farm. Herbert Watson, this is Rob's dad. He was cane cutted down in Home Hill. His father was actually a dairy farmer in the UK. His name was also Herbert, and he was very successful. Somehow they ended up in Australia. Rob and I couldn't quite work out that bit yet. After getting having enough of cane farming, he bought the current Mungalli Creek Dairy farm in the 1960s. That's Pat, she's a bit older these days, she's in her 80s. Herbie and Pat moved up to the farm, and as you can see, Rob got involved with dairy farming quite early on. Very basic back then. But I also want you guys, as I sort of share our story, to know that we're no different to you guys. You know, I might have a title as a PR and marketing manager or look after HR or do all these things, but I'm just a general dog's body as well. And we all started pretty basic, and we all still run around and wear heaps of hats. So don't think that you guys can't do what we did, because we're exactly the same. Okay. So one of the things that was really important for us when the deregulation of the dairy industry happened was to be able to stay on farm and do that viably. So we had to make some decisions about how we were going to do that. And so we chose to be a producer of premium products. That was really important, because if we tried to go head to head with the white milk market, we just wouldn't have survived. We had to have a point of difference. Luckily, Rob had chosen to farm biodynamically when he took over from Herbie and Pat. And so we already had that point of difference. So, you know, that was, whether that was luck or good planning. Obviously it's taken us a lot of tenacity and drive. And sharing our story and our provenance and our vision and values with the community and further afield has been key to our success. The reason we're successful is people liked what we did. It touched a nerve, and they promoted us. We didn't start in the era of, we did have a website in the early days, but we didn't do much with it. But there was no social media getting used, that sort of thing. So we purely grew from our interaction at the marketplace. So definitely value, as you've seen from the Sunflower Man, so I've forgotten your first name, that those sorts of things are so important. Okay, it's a family affair still, and it's, you know, part of our vision is to keep it that way. Beth's not in the picture because she's been away from the farm for 7 years doing her university and Rotary exchanges, and she's only just come back on farm in January, and she's brought a breath of fresh air, a fair level of criticism about some of our stuff needing to improve, but it's good. It's what we need. And so, yeah, it's definitely much a family business. Dan's there on the left with the with Benjamin. So Rob's the eldest and Dan's the youngest from a family of 5 kids originally, and they farm together. And so, you know, it's gone from Pat and Herb down to Rob and Dan. And it's, I don't know if Alex is in there. I tried to get a picture of Alex, but I think we just must have 2 slightly different versions. But that's okay. I thought the Dropbox would have updated. It's all good. So where did we start from? As I said, we're no different to you. It was a dairy herd, 2 dogs, retired parents, Pat and Herb, 2 brothers, Rob was married to his first wife, Sal, at the time, with 3 children under 8 and plenty of creative ideas. Everyone pitched in, so even though Pat and Herb had retired, they were still in the background helping. This is the early days in the production, and Pat and Herbie were just so helpful for us in the early days, even though they retired, just going down to the markets, because we've got a 2-hour drive to get to the markets. So just getting the produce down there and helping us tell the story. The boys did go down initially, but milking the cows, making the product, getting down to the markets, you know, leaving at 3 in the morning, getting back to get up at 4 in the morning to milk cows, it just didn't stay sustainable for too long. And so, but we couldn't be successful without the help of family. And I'm sure it's the same situation for you guys here, that it's your extended family, the people close to you that help you get on your way. So what underpins what we do? What are our visions and values? So to sustain good health and natural vitality in everything we do, we drilled this down earlier in the year in February, and because we've always talked about it in different ways and we just never really formalised it. That's another thing that's on our case to do, and we'll have that sorted on our website probably in the next few weeks. But this translates, this sustaining good health and natural vitality in everything we do, it's about how we farm. It's about how we look after ourselves and the community. It's about, you know, and unless it does those things, why are we doing it? So this translates into how we produce our products as well. So it's also about looking after the land and the animals. It's about stewardship. You know, part of our vision is actually making sure the land is better than we inherited and leaving it for the future generations. And that's one of the beautiful things that biodynamics does. It actually builds the vitality of the soil. So this, and this is Rob's passion. This is, you know, this is Rob's passion. So it's about creating the best products. If we wouldn't feed it to our family, why are we feeding it to you? You know, that underpins what we do. And these are some of Dan's kids. He's got 4 under 9. All ours are bigger now. They're 19, 22 and 25. So it's also about, so we tell our story through how we produce our products. You know, when we bottle our milk, when we pasteurize our milk, we don't do any standardization or any of those things. You know, the full cream gets bottled, the low fat gets bottled first. It's taken from the bottom of the vat because the cream rises to the top, and then we bottle the full cream. It's that technical. So it's about not bastardizing the product. You know, it's about keeping it as true to nature as possible in what we do. It's also about looking after our community. Here's our farm suppliers at one of our farm meetings on the left in our cafe, which used to be the original family house. And here's some of our milk crew after we won an award. It's all about, if it's the community that has made us successful. So unless we continue to support the community, they're not going to continue to support us. And we need to bring them along the journey because they have been so integral to us being successful. Okay. So when the boys took over in 1987 from Pat and Herbie, Herbie was farming conventionally. He wasn't using a massive amount of chemicals, but he was using superphosphates and those sorts of things. And initially when the boys took over, they were very much thinking, okay, yeah, as I'm watching with this new generation coming in, yeah, we're going to shake some things up and improve some things. And they initially, at that time, the Department of Primary Industries was very much spruiking and promoting the use of chemicals and showing these wonderful yields that you get and the returns that you get. So, you know, being young, their eyes lit up and they said, oh yeah, that could be good. But it was during that time of actually using those and having to suit up and thinking, well, hang on, something's not right here. It just didn't feel ethically right. So that didn't last for very long. And Rob started looking for alternative ways to farm. And he came across biodynamics. So as a family, we believe that it's vital that food be produced as naturally as possible and that sustainable chemical-free, biological farming, biologically active, you know, the soil's active and alive. It's like your gut health, you know, the gut-brain connection, the soil-food connection. We feel that it's imperative that that be done well, not only for our own individual health and well-being, but the health of the planet and the health of our community. So consequently, we've been farming biodynamically for 30 years. And when we do things, it's about working within the laws of nature and to regenerate the land one farm at a time. So, okay, so what? What is biodynamics? Does anyone come across it or had anything to do with down here in the region? Yeah, fantastic. So we're the only biodynamic processor in Queensland. I think there's only about still a handful of biodynamic dairy farmers across Australia. But that said, Australia has the greatest landmass in biodynamic farming, and that's mainly because of the big beef properties out west. But it's a world-recognised method of farming, and our job and our challenge as a brand is to actually help the consumers understand it more. Isn't it just the same as organics? You know, our challenge is to actually help them see what the difference is, and it's about the vitality that it brings to the food and the regeneration effect that it can have on the land. So this wasn't being practiced in North Queensland when we started, and we were getting advice from our certifier down in Victoria, and they were working with it in the temperate climate. We have 4 metres of rain a year where we are, and it just wasn't working. So Rob is tenacious. He doesn't stop till he gets something right. He'll just research and read and experiment and trial. And he managed to work out that it was our mineral balance that was out of whack. And once we got the calcium-magnesium ratio right within our soils, the biodynamics just took off. And it's such a sustainable method of farming. And so it uses a range of 8 different preparations. There's 2 key ones that are the pillars that form the basis of the biodynamics, and you can't be certified biodynamic unless you're using the 500 preparation, which is for the soil fertility, which builds the microbes, and the humus in the soil, which holds all the nutrients. And so that's a little bit about biodynamics, but if I talk about biodynamics, I'd probably really spend the rest of the presentation talking about biodynamics because I'm quite passionate about it, and I'm here to tell you our whole story. So as I said, yeah, the biodynamics builds the humus in the soil, and that traps and holds the nutrients. And that's important because the way that we view the farming is that the seed of a plant, whether it's a pasture grass or an orchard tree, it has the perfect intelligence to grow into its best form that it can be. But we, as the farmer, have to provide the right conditions. Now, in a chemical system, when you're putting on a water-soluble chemical application, you're providing nutrients, but how do you know it's the nutrients that that plant needs? And because it's water-soluble, the plant has to take it up regardless of whether it needs it. Whereas in a natural system where you're building the soil microbiology and you're building the humus and it's holding all the nutrients, well, then it's a natural process where the plant goes, actually, I need some of this and I need some of that. And because of the biology is working within the soil, things aren't locked up. You know, when you get your soil test and it says you've got this phosphorus and you've got this and you've got that, but you can't access it because it's locked up. It's because your biology is not working. You need the humus. It's different to organic matter. The humus is like, it builds the structure and it holds all the nutrients, and that's how the biodynamics is great. It uses no chemicals, no pesticides, no fertilizers, and it's a fraction of the cost of chemical agriculture. And it costs us, you know, like $1 an acre to put the 500 out. It's ridiculous, you know. And I used to do the bookwork for a dairy down the road before I got involved with Mungalli Creek Dairy, and they were spending, you know, $10,000, $15,000 a month just on inputs. And then the vet bill was similar on top of that. So, you know, you've got to ask yourself as farmers, am I farming the best way I can? Okay. So this is a slide of soil before and after the application of biodynamic preparations. And it's just the change in 12 months. with the slide on the right, you can see that there's much less compaction. You can actually start to see a crumb structure forming because air is so important for soil, for the biology to be active and to work. And so this is the sorts of things, and you can see that the colour is the development and of the structure and the humus starting to develop. So as I said, we've been farming biodynamically for over 30 years, and Demeter is our certification symbol. Now, I know there was a comment earlier about packaging not, you know, you can say anything on a pack, but in the biodynamic and organic circles, it's important that things are certified so that people can actually have some assurance that we're audited, that people actually check and test our soil and make sure we're doing the right thing. So it probably isn't as critical in a close market when you're direct to consumer, but as your products go further afield, accreditation will be important, and you might want to look at that with your regional food brand. Okay. So this is just, you know, pictures always tell a story. They tell 1,000 words. So it's just some of our staff, some of our crew, you know, making cheese. When we tell our story, it's through the quality of the products, what we're doing, and just, you know, sharing the journey. Now, along the way, as demand grew for our product, we couldn't do it all by ourselves. You know, we couldn't sustain those 16-hour days, so we had to get staff in. We then had a higher demand than what we could produce, so then it was about encouraging other farmers in the region to go biodynamic. Up in the top, you'll see Bill on the left in the red shirt, and Glenn. And this is one of our field days amongst our farmers, just having a look at, you know, sharing knowledge. And they are both certified biodynamic suppliers that supply us now. So as the consumers helped us grow, well then, can you see the benefits to the region and the benefits to farmers that weren't getting a sustainable price previously, or dealing with being in a commodity market? All of a sudden, we're now helping build the fabric of our community. This is just some images from our farmhouse cafe. So we have the original family house where the boys grew up. In 2002, when Pat and Herb finally moved off farm, Dan moved down into the house that they'd been using, and because he was in the original family home, and we converted it into the cafe. And that's an important part of us telling our story as well. So what have some of the milestones been? Oh, as I said, having to get past the fact that you can't maintain 16-hour days continuously, and you have to employ some staff. The other thing is that when you employ, you think you can just employ one staff to replace what you do, but it doesn't work that way, because you come with a different energy and a different attitude when it's your business, and you just work differently to someone coming in to do a day job. And so, yeah, so definitely being able to employ staff is one of the key milestones. Along the way, we had to adapt our business model, partly because of the marketplace. The first product that we started making was a washed rind Havarti cheese. Havarti is a Danish style cheese. Why did we start making a Danish style cheese? There was a retired Danish cheesemaker living in the district. Gave us a recipe. So, it had this washed rind. And I don't know, does anyone know what a washed rind cheese is? It's, if you think of a camembert, but a washed rind has a brevibacteria, which gives it a sort of an orange colour on the outside, and it just gives it a stronger flavour. So we were doing this semi-hard cheese, Havarti cheese, with a washed rind. It smelled like smelly old socks. Now, this is back in 2000, North Queensland, conservative. They just went, what the hell are you guys producing? We just want some cheddar. And so a lot of batches of cheese rolled down the hill. And so then we had to modify. We kept making that cheese, but without the washed rind. We did go into cheddar, but does anyone know anything about cheese making? Guess how long it takes to mature a cheddar? It takes about 6 to 12 months minimum to get a good cheddar. You might get away with a mild cheddar about 6 to 7 months if you're lucky, if you're not putting any speeding up things in it. And so there's milk coming in, there's cheese getting made, and bills coming in. And what wasn't happening? Money wasn't going out because the cheese was maturing. We'd made this great product, but it was sitting on shelf to mature. We nearly went broke because we had no cash flow. And so we woke up fairly quickly to the fact that we had to change what we were doing if we were going to survive. So as much as people love cheese, we couldn't be sustainable just doing cheese. So we very quickly moved from cheese into bottled milk and yogurt. As the demand grew, we took on extra farm suppliers. So that was a huge milestone for us. Huge costs in doing that as you take on extra farm suppliers, because you've got to instantly grow your market, and marketing costs money. And we also started another brand that's not biodynamic. It's just a local brand. It only gets sold in the North Queensland district. But that was to try and create a stepping stone for people that did want to convert to biodynamics. Yeah, we could go in more of that down the track if you want. We've ventured into chickens in 2012, and in 2018 we're having children back into the business. It's a whole new dynamic for us to experience and work with and benefit from. So yeah, so that's some of our milestones on our journey thus far. So where are we now? We've got high credibility from our biodynamic farming practices. We're supporting 9 family farms across 2 brands. We produce on-farm over 25 different product lines across our biodynamic milk, yogurts, cheese, cream, flavoured milk, kefir and bioeggs. That brings plenty of challenges and problems just to manage the logistics of that, or the packaging costs, those sorts of things. We employ the equivalent of 40 full-time staff. We actually have 70 staff on the books because lots of people just do a day or part-time, that sort of thing. So that's where all my grey hair comes from. Well, that's what I'm telling you anyway. We have a distribution centre in Townsville, and we have one in Cairns. We have an on-farm cafe and obviously our production facility. We obviously contribute significantly to our local economy, and we're very much still keen on stimulating innovative ideas and practices. And at this stage, we're juggling many hats because we're still working in the business. It's very hands-on. So the next chapter for us, we just started expanding our production facility. When we started as a business, we didn't have any money because of the deregulation of the dairy industry, and just there wasn't much money in dairying. So we did everything on as cost effectively as we can. Batch pasteurizers, just the back of the very small shed. And as the demand increased and at quite a fast momentum, we just tacked things on. So if you come to visit us and and you saw our production facility, it's like a rabbit warren, and it's not very ergonomic, and we have fun and games with safe food all the time. So this next chapter is actually about having an easily compliant production facility, something that actually has good space for the equipment, that you're not totally crammed in, that we can do some new products and meet market demand, and look at what our product offerings are. It's getting more and more competitive in the dairy space. So how can we stand out and be different? We're looking at improving our communications and visuals. We've just had a new website go up, thanks to Beth, about 2 months ago. And we're exploring export accreditation and succession planning because we're not getting any younger. So that's where we're at now. If you've got any questions or you want to know more about our story, yeah, I'm all ears. Yeah.
Are you still doing market stalls? Like you've listed market stalls there. Is that
Yeah.
still an important part of your business?
Yeah, we very much, we spend an awful lot of time going out into the public still. Sometimes I'm having requests from our staff they want a vehicle, a purpose-built vehicle, because the amount of time and energy it takes you to pack up and go to markets, and especially with the perishable. And, you know, you might get to the market, but you probably spend, you know, so much time pre-prep. And so a lot of the time we question the value, but we do the Rusty's market down in Cairns, and we're actually, I've just got a ute badge to do some markets in Southeast Queensland to see if we can, because one of the things that I totally forgot to put in the presentation was, so as the demand's growing and where we, a part of our journey is we took on an additional, we've gone from one family farm 18 months, 2 years ago, to now looking after 4 farms, which has been huge, because before we were all very contained and would ask each other questions, and we spent a lot of time driving between locations and just been a bit more stretched than we were before. So we've got the home farm. We've bought the neighbouring block to extend that farm, so that one's easy. We've got a small lease farm that we've converted to biodynamics just down the road. But we, 18 months ago, purchased a block near in Ravenshoe, which is a half-hour drive, which at the time we thought, oh yeah, that's fine. But when you're actually doing a whole conversion process to biodynamics, managing staff remotely, wanting to keep an eye on your cows and things, it's a whole different dynamic. So that farm, when we purchased it, was supplying dairy farmers, which is the you know, the Lion brand, and part of the contract arrangement was that we actually keep that supply under there until the contract finished. That would change next year, and so our production manager says to me, "So Michelle, I'm getting, you know, X number of litres of milk, and then when that contract finishes on the 30th of June, all of a sudden you're just going to go whoosh. What am I supposed to do with that?" So this is where Southeast Queensland markets and things, and having a facility that's export accredited to deal with the challenge that we have as a farm is that we either have too much or not enough. And both those things cripple us, because we pay all our farmers. We don't not take the milk. So if we have an intense wet and they provide too much milk, it's a constant communication process when it's not just your total control. If they provide too much milk, well then we have to either find a way to value add that, or if we can't, it goes on the paddocks, and then we're paying them, and you know, that affects the bottom line greatly. Conversely, you know, for the first, you know, we're not supplying enough to the market now because of the drought. So, you know, that time when we would normally have supply and get our reserves to do things, you know, so it's this constant challenge with weather patterns and things. So the purchase of this farm up in the Ravenshoe district, it's a different microclimate. It's got some irrigation, so we're hoping that gives us some drought proofing. But it will also mean that we'll probably operate in oversupply a lot of the time. So we have to be smart about value adding and working out what we can value add into, and set up structures with our that we can, you know, have enough milk, that, because if every time that we don't have milk, well then it's someone else will come and fill that space on the shelf. Because as much as you say consumers understand seasonality, they might at the farmers market, but at the end of the day they still want that milk in their fridge. So it's definitely a competitive space to operate in. I don't know if Dale's got any things on that. So yeah, so Rusty's markets in Cairns we go. We're not doing anything, and we're looking at the Southeast Queensland market starting in the next few weeks. And we attend a lot of the food events, but we don't do any other regular markets, although the girls are talking about doing Yungaburra again, but more to promote the cafe. That was a very long answer, sorry.
Any other questions? Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jervois Meats use biodynamic methods. There's quite a few beef properties and stuff that use biodynamics. If you want me to get you a list, just grab a business card and shoot me an email. I can if you look at, so there's 3 different bodies that certify biodynamics. There's the Biodynamic Research Institute, which we're certified with the Demeter logo. There's also the Biological Farmers Association have a biodynamic certification, which is Australian Certified Organic, have one. Same body, just different names over the time. And then NASA, not the space people, the National Association for Sustainable Agriculture. Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah, let's start with you, Nadine.
I just have thank you very much, President Michelle. That was really interesting. I just had a question in regards to you spoke about the vitality of the food.
Yeah.
I suppose, is that measurable, and how do you communicate that message to your customers? I don't know if anyone's dealt in the industry of health, but there's so many different opinions on nutrition and things. And there was some work done in the biodynamic circle in the early days using things like chromatography. So they use it with showing different vitalities, but they're really difficult for the layman to interpret. And so from a consumer point of view, I don't think they're very user friendly. So, there's little things that happen like bricks readings and that sort of thing. But that's an area that I'd really like to see improve. I actually have some slides that were sent to me from someone in Europe, where they were showing the structure of a conventionally produced apple versus, and in this case, an organic apple. And you could actually see the shape of the tree in perfect form in the structure of the organic one, whereas the structure picture in the conventional one was distorted. And I just thought it's things like that I'd really like to see then, if we can demonstrate the difference in the biodynamics and that sort of stuff. Farmers certainly say they see it, the cow through the animal preferences or through the quality of the wall or the fruit and with the bricks readings and that sort of thing. So, the wholesalers certainly say they're aware of it, keeping quality, those sorts of things. But that area, we're not doing well in telling that side of the story,
Julia and I are actually heading to the National Biological Agriculture Conference next weekend, and there is, I think is it the University of Southern Queensland, where we're actually going to the event. They've done some research into organics and the nutritional benefits of that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing one of those speakers. But bricks level is the most
common.
I guess the most measurable. Whether that's poor, good, or excellent bricks within that particular, say, grapes, for example, that's one way to measure how well the plant's photosynthesizing. But that's definitely an area that needs to be looked at more, like talking about how the nutrition moves through the plant. Okay.
Yeah, earlier you stated you couldn't get your biodynamics to work till you got your calcium-magnesium ratio right.
Yeah.
What did you find the optimum calcium-magnesium ratio was?
If you just look at in the Allbrick system, in terms of specific numbers, that's more a Rob question. But that was I just know it was the application of the lime onto the paddocks that the calcium was too low, but I couldn't tell you the exact number without talking to Rob. He's the soil man. But I can get you that information. But if you just look under Allbridge, and if any of the soil tests, or when I say any of the non-chemical soil tests, so through NTS or the SWEPS lab, they will give you the ideal ratio.
There's a big variation between NTS, the DPI, and other people saying what the correct calcium-magnesium ratio is.
Oh, is
and
that?
I was just wondering what was the figure you had before you actually found it starting to work for you, and what ratio?
Well, it wasn't working for us until we got that right, because what happened with the land was it was used to the superphosphates and things like that. And so you can imagine if you have someone used to a fast fix and you take that away,
when Rob took the superphosphate off the land, because he was just like, oh yeah, we'll get this working, and didn't think about staged application, all the pastures just went yellow because they were used to having an easy hit of nutrients. And because we hadn't got the mineral balance right, and the biodynamics hadn't kicked in, and the biology hadn't kicked in properly, until we worked that out, things didn't work well for us. And his dad was there in the background just shaking his head saying, what are you doing? Yeah. As you can imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you started at batch pasteuriser and then you wanted to employ more people, how did you go about that? Were you able to get any grants or to produce to that next level, or just
you just
had to go and borrow
thought
money
that they
off the
could do
bank?
so much more than they would, and then realised that they didn't, and that you had to employ three staff to play it was the equivalent of 3 staff replacing 1 family member.
So how did you generate the income to do that though? That's what I'm
That
sort of
really
looking
started the journey then, because you had to produce more product to pay for the wages. And the cycle began. That's just it's just the reality of what it was. Yeah.
I've got a question off the back of that. You said you're employing around about 40 staff now. Do you find it hard to find the skill sets in our labour market at the moment? And how do you upskill people to meet your needs?
We virtually don't have any. It's particularly in dairying. On the farm side, dairying's a dying breed, dare I say. There's not many people that have milking skills around. It's not, and the kids go, well, I'm not doing that. I'm getting shat on, and when I can go and, earn money much more easily doing something else. So, yeah, I think there's a limited labour market. You've either got to import them in or train someone up. But when I see one come across the desk that's good, I've got a guy from New Zealand at the moment who's a share farmer that's just his wife's doing some work in Australia for 12 months teaching. And so we're very happy to have him. He said, I don't want you to get too dependent on me, because I'm like, oh, can you do steep tractor work, and can you do this? And he's going, yeah, but then I don't want to, be indispensable. I said, no, I'm used to change. It's all right. But we've got plenty of things we can utilise you with while you're here. So, but yeah, we have to train. And like even cheese making, again, very limited. So maybe it's increased now because we haven't done a huge amount of cheese making for a long. I mean, we do our feta and our quark and our ricotta, but they're fairly basic. But if we go into specialty cheese, it'll be interesting to see if we attract someone from within or outside the country. Most of our production managers, we've had dairy production managers from down south apply and then come up into the region and go, I don't really want to live in Milliman. Not that Milliman was a bad place, but they're used to being closer to a city. And so one of our production managers came from an oil background, one from a mining background. The current production manager used to be an operations manager for a horse operation. You just got to train them. It's the attitude that's the most important thing.
Michelle, I noticed you have a cafe on the property.
Yeah.
So I assume you're into tourism?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to know how you tapped into that market, agritourism. Have you joined up with other farms to value add to your product, or how did you get yourself out there? For agritourism, basically.
Well, when we did, so part of having the farm cafe was to tell the story and show people how to use the product when we first started, because we were making things like quark and Havarti, and then they weren't sort of things that people were used to. So it was a vehicle for people to come and see what we made, where it was made. And so it's a very small facility. It only has inside 34 seats for 34 people. Outside, if the weather's kind, we can, do 50 or 60 people. But if it rains, we get 4 meters of rain a year, supposedly. So it's less than 1% of our total income, the cafe. But within the cafe, our philosophy carries through. So you'll see every local product that's produced in the region in there, because it was people support of our product that got us going, and so we do the same to people's product in the region, and it creates collaboration. We'll talk about that more later. We're doing significant tourism marketing. Probably spend a significant amount on that, and we do some cross collaboration, but I think we can improve on that as well. But we get so caught up in the core of the business that, you know, sometimes we miss those things. Yeah.
Okay, Rob, did you have a question? Rob?
Yeah, Michelle, do you run any internships at all with your staffing issues?
We have taken, there's a French agricultural school. Does anyone else get emails that often we get that they have a particular food focus? We often get requests for internships from them. They're normally 3-month periods and also out of Holland. So yeah, we definitely do take interns. The challenge that Rob and I had personally was that we were normally the ones putting them up, and as we got more and more staff, we just wanted a bit more, we just wanted some downtime. And so because we didn't have anyone else, I suppose we have to build some purpose-built accommodation that gives both of us some privacy, because if we just, you know, sometimes just need some space. And so we certainly take them, but at the moment sometimes we have them stay with us for the 3 months. We just had someone from a vet from Spain, and she went between 2 farms for 3 months, so part of the time with us and part of the time with the kids on the other farm. But yeah, I think if interns are great, woofers are great, but I think just get your accommodation, all that sorted, so that you can get the space when you need it. I don't know. I'm a bit of an introvert, believe it or not. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Do you take interns? Is that what were you asking the question to get an outcome of knowing if there was challenges or if it was good or bad? Or
we certainly have a challenge with our farming system, covering the 3 different enterprises that we have at the moment.
What's your which farm are you?
We're Freckle Farm, so we have the beef, pork, and
yeah.
I'm the other.
Yeah.
The one who came late. Yeah, so that's just something we got to look into the future. You know, you've employed 40 people and have a heap of different product lines. We're employing more and more people and needing to get more and more good quality people looking after enterprises to keep them going forward.
Yeah.
And as you said before, it's very difficult for you to be in the business and to be on the business as well.
Yeah, it's so easy to be hands-on, especially when you're on farm, because everyone knocks on your door. You know, especially with the chickens nearby. I think people turn up from 7 and they leave at 7. So, and it's a 7-day-a-week operation. But I would. Did you do any of this Joel Salatin stuff? So have you thought about micro? I suppose you're not ready for micro enterprises but we probably are. I like the model that Joel Salatin put forward for micro enterprises because it's hard for young people to get on farm that aligned with your brand. I think that's good. But I think internships are great too. I definitely look at them. I just think there's definitely some challenges in the dairy industry these days. And it would be interesting having some interns, if they'd need to come from a farming background, I think, or be okay with animals dying. And it's a terrible thing to say, and I shouldn't probably say this on a recording, but, the reality of social media these days and the reality of even if you're doing humane raising of stock, that question certainly got raised for us with having interns and stuff like that. But hopefully people are broad-minded enough but I think I would definitely still consider interns. We just haven't got the right setup yet in terms of accommodation and facilities for it to be good for both of us. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. While we're on that topic, Laurel Staples is here from the Queensland government, who looks after, do you want to give a little intro?
I work for the Queensland Agriculture Workforce Network, so I've actually just said send email to Greater Whit Sunday Food Network about what Quan does. So one of my roles is to help farmers find employees if they're struggling, or to find skilling, training, and funding for all of that. So yeah. and to identify any skill shortages. So if, for example, in dairy, there is no one coming
Yeah.
aquaculture is a good example at the moment. There's quite a few
Yeah.
up and coming aquaculture things that are going on in this region, and it
Yeah.
will require huge numbers, like 200 employees sort of thing, all in one hit. But no one delivers that type of training. So these are things that we will then escalate to the government and say, you need to look at either funding this or at least finding a training organization that will deliver it. So yeah, that's part of our role. So
yeah, because a lot of training's not delivered in our region, so that can be tricky. But I'm just thinking on a smaller scale, like I just had a couple of Canadians contact me on Tuesday that had milking skills, fruit and vegetable growing skills, pasture chicken skills, wanting short-term woofing. And that's the thing. A lot of people that come through only want short-term. So it's like how much time and energy you need. You really need people to be there for a decent block. Otherwise, it's just constant. But if we get requests for that, there's no reason that we couldn't share that information down to your network, because these people like to see the country. And if they're good, yeah. Okay.
We'll make this the last question. Thank you.
Michelle, obviously with perishable and refrigerated products, like many other people, you're probably struggling with electricity prices and that. Do you use any renewable energy sources? Obviously with Ravenshoe, wind farm, solar, etc.
Thank you for the question. It was funny. I was looking at the slide of all our solar panels, and I went, "Oh, I should include that." And I'm like, "Oh, you've got too many slides already." And but yeah, if you came and visited our facility, every single piece of spare roof is solar panel. Also down in our distribution centre in Cairns, which we just lease, we are still invested in putting solar there. Our challenge is the way that the system works with the government now. We produce enough power for what we need, but they still insist that we buy 10% from the grid, and it's at the times when it's most expensive. And so with this new facility that we're putting in, we're going to be putting in an ice bank system that will act like, which will store all the extra energy that we produce into the ice bank to then run the refrigeration. So, but yeah, we're definitely into sustainables and renewables, but sometimes some of the challenges are created through the compliance requirements of the electricity authorities and that sort of thing. And I don't think we're ready to go off grid yet. So, but yeah, definitely, it's definitely important. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Can everyone? Thanks, Michelle. It's an extremely impressive operation, and she's so gracious. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we're gonna have some lunch now. We've got some regional produce supplied here. So the Mackay Fishermen's Co-op has supplied our prawns, and I believe the beef and the pork is from Freckle Farm today. We've also got some number 9 nut butter on the satay, which is, if you haven't tried that, it's delicious. Yeah, so please enjoy lunch. What's that? Oh, it's a really quick lunch, so 12:20. Oh, and please form an orderly line to see Laurel as a steering yourself to your audience or to your target customer. Today, you are my target customer. I'm trying to communicate marketing to you. So I'm going to give you my story in the effort to build trust and credibility, and hopefully illustrate how telling your story to people will help them understand you better. So as a young child, I was fascinated with nature in the relatively free-ranging 80s and 90s. Passion fruit vine in the school library courtyard and the many treasures produced by the eucalypt family. Also digging in my grandparents' veggie patch. But while completing a marketing degree, I didn't really feel comfortable selling things I didn't believe in. Although the course was essentially retail driven, I chose to focus on social marketing, environmental marketing, and behavior change. Above all else, my biggest concern about the future was climate change. I thought that working with the state government for a couple of politicians would put me in a place where I could make a difference. But I soon realized that climate change wasn't really on the agenda to the level that I felt was necessary at the time. Over these years, I would basically have a meltdown every time I tried to buy food because I couldn't find local and organically produced food. So I began growing at home. That was about 7 years ago. I've been digging deeper into soil health and gradually took on more and more land, arguably too much. I now farm a half an acre of market garden on a leased plot of certified organic land. These hands are usually filthy. They're definitely not marketers' hands, that's for sure. I'm not originally from a farming background, but I have learnt the effort and pressures of producing food for profit. I do love gardening or farming or whatever you prefer to call what I do. I grow food to meet the demands of me and people like me who want to buy locally produced organic food. And also to feed my family, particularly my mum who's been unwell and my 3.5-year-old niece. So I also work full-time as Reef Catchments Sustainable Agriculture Project Officer, following a 12-month stint in the communications and media role. I love this job. I get to look after this project, helping other farmers improve their marketing and to address climate change. It's an opportunity that seemed really perfect to combine the two things I really care about. So just to identify some of those key points that I use to build trust that you might be able to use to build trust when you tell your story to people, whether that be through the many means that you can tell your story, website, face-to-face at the farmer's market, a little bit about your history, a little bit about accreditation, the fact that somebody outside of you thinks that you can do what you're doing well. So, you know, accredited through a university, accredited through an organization such as the organic certification bodies. Those things really help to build trust and credibility. I had one other point there, but it's gone. So now I am going to tell you a little bit about marketing, and we're just going to start with the marketing 101. Marketing is often confused with advertising, and they're not actually the same thing. There are 7 variables in marketing, and advertising is just one component of promotion. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, who is our target customer and what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Imagine in your mind your best customer. For me, it's a wealthy retiree in Airlie Beach, and we'll just call her Margaret. Margaret would probably pay anything for my produce. Her problem is that she comes from down south and she's used to getting the very best southern gourmet produce. But now she lives in Airlie Beach and I'm the next best thing. I solve her problem. But I only have one Margaret and she can't buy everything that I grow. If I can't find any more Margarets, I'm going to have to change my target customer. Unfortunately, Margaret is not a sustainable market. And I'm going to have to adjust one of the marketing variables. So those marketing variables are also known as the 7 Ps of marketing. You can adjust these variables to meet the needs of a target market that is sustainable for you, big enough, with enough money. And I'm going to go through these. So firstly, product. It's either, if you're selling to one consumer, maybe one avocado. If you're selling to a restaurant, maybe a box of avocados. If you're selling to a wholesaler like Veggies Unlimited, maybe it's a pallet of avocados. Place where I sell and distribute my product. That can either be online or at the farmer's market or at different stores around. Promotions. This is deals, loyalty cards, and of course advertising. This is where you can create a need for your customer that they didn't actually know they had. So create a problem for them that they didn't know they had. So perhaps they didn't know that they needed to purchase regional produce, but you tell them why they need to purchase regional produce. Price. This is the price not only that we're willing to sell at, but the customer is willing to buy at. it also takes into account how long it takes them to purchase your produce. If they have to drive all the way to Bowen to get it, then there's a cost associated with that. As an experiential offering, like if they're driving to, say, Mount Charlton to go and buy some strawberries, then that's an experience. They're definitely, like, the strawberries were a little bit more expensive than they sold them for at the in the supermarket. But those car parks were absolutely full every single weekend at Valentine's for the last few months. And people going out there for an experience. They're not going out there for like strawberries that cost actually more than they would in the supermarket. So process, can they pay you via FBOS? Cash only? Do you have a seamless online ordering system and delivery process? And is this process enjoyable for the customer? People, you as the face of your business, that's your staff. And I would also argue who they interact with when they purchase your produce. Like, you know, in the morning when I go to my coffee shop, I don't just go to get the good coffee and to see the people behind the counter, but my whole community is there. And it's the same at the farmers markets, I think. Like, people come not just to interact with you, but interact with people that are at the market. Physical evidence or proof. What evidence do they have to evaluate your business from? Like packaging, your market stall, cleanliness, labels showing your accreditation. And I actually am a strong believer in accreditation and labels. And then communicating what they actually mean. And I don't think I've done a very good job of that this year. I kind of rested on the, hey, it's certified organic, and got to actually explain what that means to people. Not everyone really cares that it's organic. So provenance, what is provenance and why is it important? Provenance marketing is essentially telling the story around your product. Give me a second to read over that. So you're selling your story, not just the tomato or the honey, but you're adding value to your product and building a positive association around it. You're building trust and credibility and openly showing your authenticity. I think that the boutique winemakers do it the best. But because we don't have wine in our region, I've resisted the temptation to stroll the aisles of Dan Murphy's for research purposes, and instead have focused my examples on the industries we have within our region. So what's your story? I think the most important thing is to start with your why. Your values, your background, your motivations all form part of your provenance story. For new brands, you have the opportunity to build to build that story, to create that story. There's a fairly new designer in town. She's a Mackay girl. She's doing a fantastic job at her provenance marketing. Don't just look for examples within the food industry. Look outside of our industry. This girl is telling us the story of how our products are made, where they're made, and she's only been going for 2 years. Heritage. Were your family farmers at some stage? What's the history of the property? What are the genetics of the animals that you have on your property, or the origins of that vegetable variety? This is Templeton ginger in the Sunny Coast, and it starts off, this is their website. The world was at war in the 1940s when several farmers near the small town of Buderim, Queensland, tried their hand at growing ginger. That's a great start of a story that pulls you right in. You really want to know what was going on, like what made these people want to start growing ginger in the middle of the war. Two Gulf's crabs. They're talking about you know, these kids back in the 1990s. So, you know, explaining how long doesn't necessarily give you any particular kudos, but showing that you've been going for a long time, and it's endearing, and it actually builds trust. People love that nostalgia, and that you've been going for a while. Narada Tea, talking about the origins of tea, not just their business, but it all started in China. And then the current business in Bingle Bay in the far north Queensland by 4 brothers in 1882. That was a long time ago. Leveraging location. So regional branding is something that we're going to be talking about collectively together at, this afternoon at about 1:30 when Jade comes in. We're going to be talking about what's our regional brand all about. When I see this sign, I just think dripping faces with, you know, pineapples and mangoes and tropical fruit. What's this region all about? Once you understand the customer perceptions around this region, I think that's a good base to build off. So placing an Eiffel Tower image in front of your package doesn't make you French. Instead, you need to think of how the brand represents your place of origin and go from there. I just had to throw in this example because it's so perfect. It's the best example of leveraging location that I've seen. Mungalli Creek Dairy sits in the heart of the World Heritage Rainforest. It protects our farm from spray drift. It means we're surrounded by beautiful waterfalls like this. Perfect example of leveraging location. So visual identity. Oh, we'll talk about that waster in a moment. So like colours, for example, red, white and green would be suitable for Italian heritage tomatoes in a packet. You can make those associations without actually explicitly having to say to the customer, hey, look, this is Italian. So focus on the details and tell the story. Provenance comes to life not only through the offering, but the story around it, the full story. The where and the how are a powerful source of myth. Customers want the details about the craft, the authenticity and the personality of the places and the people behind the things they buy. I think it's even worthwhile to talk about how long a crop takes to grow. Like these carrots are pulled out of the ground. They were actually planted 12 weeks ago. Not many people know that it takes 12 weeks to grow a carrot. Like there's time and effort involved. And I think there's, going into that level of detail is important to tell that story to the customer. So sustainability and environmental credentials. What are your farming practices? People want to know. Do you crop rotate? Do you feed the soil with compost? Do you use biologically based fertilizers? Take the opportunity to educate your customer. Not in a preachy way, but do talk about your practices. Do you use any practices that lower your carbon footprint? Minimize the use of plastics in your business? Do you plant trees in non-cropping areas of the farm? Do you source all your products locally? If you're interested in seeking any of these accreditations, so Hort 360 is the horticulture best management practice. You can come and see me, and I have actually started the process here, and it is a big process, but it is quite interesting to go through. It's helps you look at every single detail of your business and how you can improve. As for certified organic, I have actually gone through that process as well. There is a small market in Mackay who are interested in this, but I think it is growing all the time. If an aspect of your provenance is not attractive, don't emphasize it. Not every brand has the benefit of positive association, and I just love this. Normally you would look at that green oyster and just not want to eat that. That does not look appealing with that green tinge to it. But they've really turned that into an opportunity. They've talked about the algal bloom in the water and turned this product into something that's in high demand from the customer, created a massive amount of value for the producers and a higher price and profit for that business. It's pretty impressive. So marketing is not about deception, it's about authenticity. It's about being strategic and building positive associations. You can do that through the copy, so the text in your the writing that you use within your work, the look and feel. The past and nostalgia evokes a level of comfort and trust. You can use typography and font like handwritten styles rather than that crisp clinical, because that's out. People don't attach to that as much anymore. And images that are real and authentic, not those stock images that, you know, used to be all the rage in marketing a little while ago. Labels and logos give time poor customers the information they need at a glance without having to dig too deeply. And I know that we're here to tell our story, but some people don't have time. They just want to see that logo and they want to move on. So mediums or channels to tell your story. So we can do this direct at the market. We can do this through packaging. I found this on a Qantas flight. I actually brought this little prop with me today. I've been hanging on to this for months now. Every single area of this package is got information about their provenance on it. I mean, really, who cares that our savouries are baked in what is arguably the Australia's highest bakehouse at 120 metres above sea level? But they think it's important and they're telling you about it. And I honestly, I'm very endeared by this. Like, yeah, exactly. And I think Qantas are pulling more and more of these products in. So there's an opportunity there, and they always have things that are very well provenance branded. So yeah, I could go on about that for a little while, but no, I smashed them. Yeah. I think the packets are still in here. I kept them as well because they do have similarly fantastic branding on them. Hey, all right. So you can sell yourself through the your own website. You can sell yourself through something like the network website. There's one great example I'm going to show you from Rainforest Bounty. It's a little video. I'm hoping that everyone's going to be able to hear it.
My inspiration for starting Rainforest Bounty actually came from quite a number of different sources. Growing up here on the Atherton Tablelands, wandering around the forest as a kid and picking up fruits and trying to work out whether they were edible or not. And then I think the next big influence came from when we lived in Indonesia and seeing the amazing spices and flavours of Asia. The other strong influence came from seeing the regionality that exists in France and how proud people are of what is particular to their region.
The tableland has got so much to offer, and it's a totally different world up here.
I currently work as an environmental scientist, and that's the skill and the lens that I bring to the work that I do with Rainforest Bounty. I've learnt a lot by looking at what Aboriginal people do in terms of how they lived in harmony with the environment, and in fact there's a lot of evidence to show that Aboriginal people actually farmed native fruits. They selected superior yielding varieties and they brought them here and put them in areas where they would grow really well and where it was really efficient to harvest them. And that's quite a different approach than conventional European farming, which is all about clearing everything there first and then coming in and planting a monoculture, as opposed to gathering what's already there and probably just intensifying it in a much more natural and harmonious way. The unique situation of Rainforest Bounty is the fact that we're both growers as well as manufacturers, and we also buy in from other local orchards. We're bringing new growers on board all the time. They don't want to be in charge of manufacturing and they don't want to be in charge of marketing, and so what we do is we cover all those areas and allow our growers just to be growers if that's what they want to do. The fruit that we use are 4 main species. They all occur naturally here in the rainforest. One of them is a type of a plum, which is commonly called a Davidson plum, and the Aboriginal name is a Ure plum. Another fruit we use is a type of citrus. It's a rainforest citrus. It's probably the most ancient citrus on earth.
I just wanted to rip it off the tree and keep on eating it. It was just absolutely beautiful. For me, it was just something new, something exciting.
The third is a type of lily pilly, which is a type of berry, and it's a really big, large, juicy fruit. And then the fourth is a really amazing type of tamarind. Its common name is bungi tamarind. I describe it as a combination of jasmine and bergamot. What we do is we combine those fruits into these fabulous sauces and chutneys and pickles. We put them into ice creams, cordials, cereals and granolas. It's really open to your imagination, and I really want to showcase them to the whole world. The lovely thing about the River Pavilion is that we first started using it for cooking schools, and now we use it for Sunday lunches and weddings and all sorts of other different events because it's such a beautiful facility.
I don't know how I can describe it in just a few words other than say you have to come here. Perfect climate, perfect setting, perfect people and the perfect food.
What we try and do is not just about our native fruits, but it's also about showcasing all the produce from the tableland. So we use pork from our local free-range pastured piggery. We use local organically raised beef from the Atherton tablelands. We use as many fruit and vegetables as we can, both from our own property here, but also from local growers. This whole property is really special. This is the place where you come to see how the trees are grown, to experience the fruit in their natural habitat, and where people can come and see where the home of Rainforest Bounty is.
Okay. They touched on so much history, so many different elements of history, so many different elements of her values, her background. It's an impressive video, I think, about telling your story. So other mediums where you're able to share your story, of course, through social media. And we've seen a fair few examples of Instagram that I showed today. Also media interviews. Thank you to those people who put their hand up to talk to the media today. That's a really great opportunity to talk about who you are, let consumers know more about you. Even phone messages and on hold music, if you're up to that level, you know, while just any opportunity like that little box of cookies, any opportunity to tell your story. So I think that's enough from me. Let's hear from Michelle. I would love to just get an indication of anyone who's looking to work through this program with us for the whole series. It's better. Anyone who's looking to work through these 6 workshops? Wonderful, Sharon. 2, 3, 4. I can see 20. This is good. Yeah, great. Yeah, excellent. All right. That's enough for me. Oh, I just wanted to, one last thing. So Appellation grown promotional materials for farms. So look what this Appellation region do. They do like boxes. They've got even rubber bands with Appellation grown. They've got stickers. They've got little bags. That's one option that we have to put forward for this regional marketing campaign or regional advertising campaign. I don't see why, you know, preparing some of these materials like that would fit in. So just have a think about not just how we're going to sell your produce, but how we're going to sell the region's produce. Alrighty. Thanks, Megan. Thanks.
Thanks. I think I'll be all right.
Well, welcome back, everyone, and what a fantastic lunch you guys put on. I'm happy to come and talk anytime if you're going to feed me like that. So some of the stuff that I go through may reinforce some of the stuff that Tegan's done. And again, one of the messages that I think is important for you guys to understand is that what I'm showing you is it can be done on a really grassroots level. Part of me was cringing with my presentations today because I thought, oh, you know, they could be more polished, they could look better, you know, it's not up to a high enough standard. But then I thought, hang on, the whole point of communication and social media is, and communication definitely isn't all about social media, but the whole point of telling your story is about authenticity and keeping it real. So we'll go through some of those elements in some of the examples that I show you. And there it is. Okay. And I'm sure from what you've seen so far, there is definitely a lot of power in provenance and telling your story. We've certainly found that anyway. And we've been pretty slack about doing it. We've relied on the customers, so we're lifting our game as well. So we're pretty much in the same boat as you guys, except for we've probably got a few extra responsibilities. Okay. So your product can be the best in the world, but unless people know about it and feel a connection, it's meaningless. So you can put all this time and energy to make, you know, producing or growing the best thing, but you've got to connect to the consumer. So no matter how fantastic the quality of your products are, better brands outsell better products. So what does that mean? You know, we're told time and time again that our dairy products are superior to another organic dairy product down in the in Queensland, but they have done their legwork in that region so much better than we have that they outsell us. So we see this ourselves in our own business model. So our journey now, as we, because as your farm develops, as your business grows, you start off telling your story just to your community, you know, and then as you go further afield, well, then you have to think, okay, I've still got to communicate my story well. They're not right next door to me, but how do I continue that journey, and how do I do it since I can't, you know, pop down and see them? I can't connect with them as easily. So it's an interesting one, but very true. And we've definitely experienced it. So 45% of a brand's image is recognized by what it says and how it says it. So it's really important that you're consistent and congruent. Does everyone understand what I mean by congruent? Like it matches, you know, it's no point saying that we do X, Y, Z, but then they come and visit and you don't, or it's no good putting values or things to your brand that aren't really you. And so 62% of people cite shared values as a reason for brand loyalty. So there's a lot of power in branding. And so to take the time and energy to really think through what you're doing and why you're doing it. As we've said, stories sell, and we've certainly experienced that. Okay. I'm probably going to play this video for you a little bit further down the track than right now, I think, depending on what happens when I push this button. Oh, I'm going to play it now. So that video didn't cost us a cent.
And the reason that we connected with those people is because we get out there. We don't get out there much. We're stuck on farm a lot. But we do enough that people know that we exist and that people will then want to come and connect with us. I've got their logo at the end of my website, We'll Work for Food. It's a couple of really passionate originally Townsville-based foodies that just wanted to get involved with helping farmers. And so there's lots of ways that we can tell our stories, because a lot of the things that we don't do is either because we're too busy or we think we can't afford it or we don't have the resources. So I'm hoping when I share with you in this presentation is that you'll see that there are things that you can do that won't cost you money, and or if they do cost, that you can probably get some funding assistance towards them. So on this journey this afternoon, we're going to talk about how we define Mungalli, or did Mungalli define us? What we saw as our unique points, the importance of keeping it real, and this one is so important for us at the moment as we go into our next chapter. Building our profile, collaboration, the power of that, regional branding, and that, you know, add value. Just tell your story, it adds value. Okay, so defining Mungalli. I think at the core, your story needs to be adaptable and flexible, but it needs to have a strong core. So, and I'm saying this because obviously we're going into a new phase, a bit of a transition, and but really that's been happening the whole time since it started 18 years ago. So in the early days when we started, there wasn't any social media. We were very much reliant on traditional media or just the markets to get people on board with our products. And I think the thing that they loved was that we were doing things naturally and that we were the underdog. So that stood out for us straight away. Today, in the category that we play in the most, which is in dairy, it's getting a lot more crowded. There used to only be the big guys and then a few brave souls that ventured out. There is regional dairy brands in everywhere, and that's great. I think that's farmers taking the power back and choosing to map their futures. But that said, well then we can't just say, oh yeah, everyone knows us. We don't have to do any marketing. Oh yeah, we haven't got time for this or we haven't got time for that. We actually have to make sure that we stay present and relevant and still connect with our marketplace. It doesn't matter that we've been around for a long time. It's probably actually quite dangerous that we've been around for a long time because we can get busy as the business develops and we get more and more pressures from compliance and different things that we have to implement. So I think it's really important that we continue to tell a strong story. Otherwise, it's easy for people to forget brands. People love to try new things. They love to support new things. So that's great. And in this world of startups and social media, it's really important that you don't forget to continually tell your story. So I don't think our uniqueness has changed. It's just the marketplace is a lot more crowded. So the clearer our messaging and the more consistently that we put that messaging out there is going to be very important in the next chapter of our journey. But it needs to be authentic. So we'll talk about that a bit more. So as I said earlier in the year, in February, actually, as part of a QDO program, which is the Queensland Dairy Farmers Organisation, they put on a marketing person and they said, oh, we'll help you tell your, we'll help develop some brand strategies and stuff for you. And we just sat on the veranda one day and they kept saying what they thought we were. And I kept saying, but you don't get the whole point of why we farm biodynamically. It's all about the vitality in the food. Because they talk about the organics or they talk about the sustainability of what we do. And the whole point of what we do is because we want to create vital people really in the world. You know, it's like through regenerating the soil and watching the effect on the food and the animals. And then if people eat good food and their minds work well, what are the possibilities? So that's, you know, that's the big picture. And so how did we drill that down into something that people connect with and we could use and we could relate to? And that's what we came up with, the sustaining health and vitality in all we do, which I know I presented last time, but that's what we're focusing on at the moment. So when you tell your story, I think part of the process with not getting lost, because there's always going to be different things that you can share, which are all part of your story, but how are you actually being consistent in your messaging? Not to the point where you're cold and corporate and that sort of thing, but like people know, yeah, these guys stand for that. These guys, this is what they're about. So we obviously, farming practices is a strong focus in our story, and the desire, the regeneration of the land one farm at a time. Sometimes we say regeneration of the earth one farm at a time. That's Rob's driving force. He wants to demonstrate to the community up there that he wasn't just some mad hippie that went and did biodynamics. He wants to show them that this is actually a worthwhile thing and it's really important. So a lot of the ways that you tell your story bring through your personal passion and aspirations. So don't be afraid to show who you are. It doesn't matter if people think you're a bit weird. They all thought we were mad and he was just a crazy long bearded hippie, but they listen to him now. Well, some do. Our family philosophy, we've always had an interest and passion in health and nutrition. Rob looks at longevity these days as he's aging, whereas Dan, he's got 4 kids. He goes from 2 years right through to 9 years, so he wants to make sure that he's doing the building blocks right for his kids. So that's great because that's what a lot of our audience wants. So that has to come. That always comes through the fact that we're aiming to produce the most nutrient-dense food you can to give you the best start. The other thing that comes through for us as a family as to why we do what we do. Am I losing this again? The right-hand one. Why we do what we do, and this is from Rob's motivation, because we're in a family business, so we're all going to bring a slightly different element and a slightly different motivation. What we do, that's the fun and joy and challenge of working as a family. You don't always see things the same way. But one of Rob's motivation for doing Mungalli Creek is that he remembers what it was like when he was a kid growing up. The number of kids on the school bus going down the road, the vibrancy of the town. And he then saw Millamilla, the township that he grew up in, go into a massive rural decline and just 1 or 2 kids on the school bus instead of a full load of kids on the school bus. And so he just thought, no, I want to make a difference. I want to see the community vibrant again. So for him, part of his agenda is about rural revitalisation. And so for Dan, Rob's younger brother, and myself, we're Cancerians, so we like everything safe and homely and that sort of thing. You know, all these big things, we're like, oh, you know, what are we doing now? We feel much more comfortable in the small space. Whereas Rob, he's out there risk-taking, doing all those things. So that's all part of our story and part of the melting pot of who we are as a family. Again, we are successful because of being local. And so it's very important that we continue to use local ingredients. There's an opportunity here for any of our products, whether it's cheese, yogurt, anything in the pipeline. We might need a fruit or a spice or a herb. Grow it in commercial quantities, let us know. If you've got an idea you want to share, keep in contact. So using local and supporting local ingredients, that's very much a part of our story. And then making a positive difference. So it's like, okay, in the early days, it was about, God, how are we going to stay on farm? How's the farm going to support us? Do we have to go out and get other jobs? But now that the farm does support, then how do we make a positive difference, both locally and then also in the world? So those sorts of things need to come through in our messaging. So your list doesn't have to be as long. You might just have two key messages you want to get across. You might have 2 or 3, but that's just helps us keep it organised. So what's unique about what you do? This is what I have down for Mungalli. Well, I actually didn't write anything, which is fine. But if you look, that's the 500 preparation after it's been buried in the cow horns for 6 months before it goes into the stirring machine, which is the next one along. Then you've got quartz crystal, which is the preparation 501, and then it's crushed up there. You know, what's not unique about what we do? Telling your story is just sharing what you do, your passion, and what's unique about it. So we've got plenty of opportunity. Obviously, we're supporting farmers learning about regenerative practices. We're supporting farmers having a sustainable future by them supplying us. You know, just the tractor, even just putting out the compost. You know, people are interested in what you're doing. You might think it's just a chore you've got to get done on farm, or it's just a day-to-day thing. Not to them. The people that are buying your produce have never been on a farm, and don't even know what happens on a farm. And so you've got so many things you can share. It's not like you go, oh, well, God, I haven't got the material. The material is right there under your nose. Now, the other thing that is important is if you're the one that doesn't get out in the paddocks as much as you'd like, and it's your partner and he's not very social, make sure you encourage him to take photos for you. Tell them what you're doing, and then you can post the material. But people really want to know what's going on and how the food's produced. So obviously our uniqueness is also about our care for the soil. If you look at the pasture there, we're not into a monoculture in our pastures. We call them salad bowl pastures. So you've got different clovers and grasses and docks and you know, there's at least 12 different species of edible greens in there. So that's a point of difference for us. We do the biodynamics because we care about the soil and we want to farm differently. So it's just all part of telling our story. There's no rocket science in it. Obviously, the cows are pretty gorgeous. We've got pretty good views. So again, they just all form part of the story. That's the chicks. So, you know, you don't really need words with stuff like that. They just tell your story. Beautiful sunsets. So just location, place, where you do your farming. So many people are stuck in buildings and suburbia and cities. They respond so well to just being in the outdoors with you, even though they're not physically there, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, so obviously the biodynamic farming, we use our certification, obviously when we're further afield. The fact that we're family run, people don't trust big corporates. That is such an asset to tell you, to show the hard slog that you do and to tell your family story. Having a bigger purpose and giving back is key. You get so much more by giving back. In the early days, you're often in survival mode. You're flat strapped, just making sure you pay the bills and pay your workers. But once you got past that stage, well, then look at how you can give back. Your region, you know, as I said, pristine imagery of where you're located, capitalise them. We capitalise them, being sprayed reef-free. We're surrounded on 3 sides by World Heritage Rainforest. We look out to Mount Battlefrere, as I said, Queensland's highest mountain. We have so many regional assets that support our story. And, you know, we could be biodynamic farming, but if the 2 farms either side of us spraying, well then, you know, it isn't as great as having a protective barrier of the rainforest on 3 sides. It's World Heritage listed. So we're very lucky. Wrong size head. So I was also wanting to cover, you know, okay, so these are the sorts of things that we highlight. Where do we highlight them? Obviously the certification on the packaging. On our website, you can highlight all those things. In the print media, you know, journalists are as time poor as us. They're always after a story. If you make their life easy,
And if you've got something interesting happening on farm, don't hesitate to share it. If you've got a good image and a few words, they'll be more than likely will end up in the paper. Radio, get to know your local ABC rural reporter and or your local ABC news person, and just have their number in your mobile or their email address, and just have like maybe half a dozen key people that you can flick information to. And it'd be amazing how soon they'll be ringing you if something's going on in the industry and wanting to know what your viewpoint on it is. Social channels, obviously, they're very useful. They can be very time consuming. We'll talk a little bit more about those. And obviously certification is important in our circle, especially if our product's going further afield. Again, natural assets, you know. So keeping it real. Rob's daughter Beth, one of the things that she suggested that we might need to do after 18 years is refresh our brand and get some of our packaging and things a little bit more consistent. We're a bit higgledy-piggledy. And so we're having these big, intense conversations. Dad's saying, oh, I'm spending too much money elsewhere. Do we really need to bother? And so we had to fill out a questionnaire. We're just investigating and dabbling at the moment. And one of the things that came back from Dan, Rob's younger brother who he farms with, on his questionnaire, his was nice and short and sweet, but he said, I still want to feel like we can sell to the homeschoolers and that we're real. I don't want to become something that feels corporate. And one of the things that I put on my answers was like, I still want the quirky Watson sense of humour to come through somehow in what we do, because unless we can show who we are and we just become a brand, you can still sell product through good marketing, but why are we doing it? I think it's just really so much more powerful to just be authentic and share your story and keep it real. So, so with the authenticity, don't think that you can only present something that's polished and pristine. Share all aspects of the journey, you know, warts and all. I mean, within reason. Help people feel part of your family. That's the way we like. We want people to feel like we're looking after them as well as we'd look after ourselves in terms of the quality of the food, that sort of thing. Make sure you humanize your brand. Don't just do everything remotely. So make sure that you actually take the time to connect with the customers. Obviously, is everyone here going to the markets or just some? So the ones that don't go to the markets, how can you get that human face there? You don't have to do it all the time, but it just is so much more powerful once they connect with you eyeball to eyeball. Yeah. Or do you want me to swap over? Okay. I'll have to stop bouncing around. So obviously markets are fantastic for that. Events, so regional food events. And also when you're sharing some of your family history, one of the products that I'll share with you later is, this is one of our quark dips that we just make in our cafe, but the chili sauce on the bottom is Rob's mum's original recipe. So there's a whole story in there. The chutney that we serve with our cheese platter, again, is one of Rob's mum's recipes. There's so many ways that even people that aren't directly on your farm but have a connection, you know, you can create connections in so many ways. So with your imagery, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, you know. This was just a moment when I think Luke wanted to grab something off Dan, but it just worked out to be just a great little shot. It just looks more real. This shot, you know, I'd cringe, you know, look at the state of our floor in the office and look how much crap's on the office desk. But it's real. You know, the boys were just, No, oh, no, not really. But you know, it was workplace health and safety issues, and you know, enforcement of wearing helmets on quad bikes, and the helmets had just arrived in the mail, and Beth went, "Oh, let's take a photo." But people like to see you just how you are, just being silly. So we introduced a product called Kefir, or Kefir, however you want to say it, earlier this year, and it was something we'd talked about for years. But when we were telling this, we were telling the story about the kefir in a magazine recently, just a little local magazine for a Bloom Health event, a Bloom Wellbeing, and in that story we actually talked about why the kefir is actually GAPS friendly and has a 24-hour long ferment. And that came about because Rob's youngest son was born prematurely, 10 weeks, and had lots of gut health issues through being born through emergency Caesar. And so he and Karen, his mum, and Benjamin did a program, a GAPS program, to help heal his gut health, because he would have heaps of distress otherwise. And so once they started that journey, they were getting lots of requests saying, well, can you make a long ferment this, or can you do that? So we thought, yeah, we'll go that extra mile. It takes longer, it's a bit more involved, but we're serving and making a solution for the customer. And but then we've also got that connection of the story about how it evolved and eventuated. This is the paddocks at the moment. Look how dry it is. This is last week or the week before. Just tell them how it is. You know, we've got milk shortages. We need some rain. From that post last week, we ended up with 4 media articles. Macca ringing me up for a radio interview. So in the old days, if you wanted to get something out in the traditional media, you'd have to, you know, get your picture, write your press release, get it out there. Whereas if you have a good following on social media and you post something that's relevant or timely, they'll ring you for the story. So it makes things a lot easier. So these are some of the things that we've done to build our profile as we've told our story. So this would have been, so the 10 cents levy on milk that's been pushed for the last 3 or 4 months through the QDO. The local media rang Rob for comment. So because we've got that profile. So once you have a profile and there's something happening in the industry, they want to get comment. And they normally get comment from the conventional guys, and then they ring us to see if we have a different perspective. So I've just, over the next couple of slides, I've just listed some of our strategies of what we use to connect to our customers. So again, I said, you've got to build that connection. So they're part of our extended family. Be transparent, engage and build loyalty and advocacy, and share your story continuously. And if you, as I said, the non-traditional media seems to be attracting the traditional media these days. Transparency is key. So that's achieved both through following through in what you do and say, and through that face-to-face. We use our farmhouse cafe, our tours, our website. We write blogs, not very often. We're just talking about that, but once a month. So when you're doing these things, you don't have to do them all the time, but just get a consistent pattern. If you can only post to social media once a week, just do once a week. If you can only write a blog once every 2 months, just do it once every 2 months, but just be consistent so the consumer knows. Sharing our values and aspirations and telling them when things aren't working, just being real. Connection is key. In-store tastings is another great way. Community events. As I said, get to know your media. Also build your profile through your staff and your culture. You know, they're your best advocates. Take them on the journey with you. Receive and ask for customer feedback. Make it fun. And help your customers feel good about being associated with your brand. For social media, we won't go into that in too much detail, but it's the 80-20 rule. So 80% needs to be things that are useful to them,
and 20% about you and your business. We've talked about consistencies and make others. So it's about giving on social media. It's about sharing and giving rather than selling. And make others the star of your show, your staff, your animals, the wildlife in the region, your customers, the community. There's so much then that you can share. And they might be using your products, but you're making them the star. And just ensure you have a consistent voice in all your messaging so that it comes through with integrity and alignment. Create value. So obviously, farm tours is a great way for us to tell our story, and we do them at all age groups. Credibility, you can also build credibility through sharing your farming methods and putting your products up for judging and being willing to go out to attend events outside your region. Obviously, these are just some of the awards. It just, credibility for your brand can help if you're trying to get into a bigger distribution channel, whether it's a major supermarket or just in a different region. Capitalizing on opportunities. Every day there's probably something worthwhile happening on farm that is part of your story. You might be doing new product development and research. In the early days, when we were trying to work out consistency of yogurts, flavours, those sorts of things, we took our samples to the markets, asked them for feedback, asked them what they thought. A staff opening can be an opportunity to tell your story. Why should you work for us? A good or bad weather event, as I said. So all these things here, they just look like farm work, but you know, one of them was spraying essential oils on the cows for ticks and flies. That one up in the top corner, Rob had been thrown by a cow the 2 days before, but he was still working. Talks about resilience of farmers. This is us doing, putting some lime out in the paddocks. The dung, we could talk about dung beetles. There's just so many opportunities, you know, snake in the chook poop, baby chickens. This guy, I just happened to walk out on the cafe deck one day, not that I'm in the cafe very often, and he was, I said, oh, do you need a glass for that? And he said, oh, no one's here to tell me off that I can't drink out of the bottle, and I'll drink the whole lot. These guys, so this is your tourism linkages when you're going to talk about regional branding shortly. So these guys are volunteers from one of the visitor information centres. So if we tell them our story, well, they'll spread it further afield. So it's all about getting other people to tell your story, which leads to brand ambassadors, influencers, celebrities, and connecting with them. So who is a potential good brand ambassador for your product? Who's got some reach? Whether they're a chef, whether they're a blogger, you know, who is it that could help get your message out further? This is Jo Whitten from Quirky Cooking. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her. She's Malanda based, so local, but she's got 250,000 followers, and she quite often uses our products. The cheesecake and the top's made with our quark, and then this is our Misty Mountains cream that she was making some butter with one day. This was an Instagram thing with the local tourism body that they were doing Instagram posts in the local region, and we had all these international Instagrammers coming around wanting to take food pics. So this is a local chef, Simone Watts. She used to be at Rainforest Bounty, but now she's up in Daintree Ecolodge, and she's always spruiking and using our products. So she sees the value in saying that she's doing that in her establishment. Collaboration. Are you leveraging the power of collaboration? Have I got 2 minutes? Okay. We collaborate all the time because we can't do everything ourselves, so we run out of time. And don't be afraid of collaborating with other food producers in your region. You're all in this together. And like Gallows, we could be seen as competition, but when they put in for their grant application, we said that it was beneficial to have another cheese producer in the region because it helps food trail. When they don't have enough cream with one of their cheeses, they buy cream off us. If we want them to make a cheese that we don't have the area to make, we give them our milk and they make a cheese for us. So it's all about collaboration. And, you know, I'm going to look at buying some bottles together, possibly with Rainforest Bounty for our jams. This is Rainforest Heart and their dukkha. When we go to a local event, it goes damn good with our quark. So we try and get stalls side by side, and then we cross-promote products. This is broken nose vanilla, really nice vanilla. If we're on a stall near each other, I get the Greek yogurt, put some of her vanilla in there. Cross-collaboration. Don't underestimate the power. Rainforest Bounty, who you saw the video of recently. Now, this is one of their curry bases. It says to use coconut milk, but why not? I could just change the recipe up to use Greek yogurt. So I did have some Davison plum paste, but I must have forgotten to put it back in the bag when I left at 4 a.m. the other morning. So, but there's a local lady that supplies our Davison plum for our yogurt. She does some packaged up pastes and things, and it goes great with our cheddar. So how can you cross-collaborate with the other local producers in your region? There's just so much power in that, especially when you're attending events and things like that. What chefs can you get to send? We've got a bag there if you want to hold it up, Tegan. We've only just done this because, as I said, we're pretty slack with things at times. But we've just got some branded bags, and what we've started doing is sending out a pack of products to bloggers or chefs and just say, you know, just thought you might like to try some of our products, that sort of stuff. Regional branding. Taste Paradise. This came about when we were already well-established, as a brand. So I know you're following into a regional branding section now. For us, it wasn't critical in our journey because we were so well established when they started. But I took the time to talk to a few of the smaller producers, and this is what they said about Taste Paradise and how it helps bring provenance to our local brands. So it provides a platform to connect foodie tourism to our region and assists in facilitating and coordinating regional and local marketing initiatives. It pools resources to gain a regional presence at events and has created a listing of all food assets in the defined regional area, and it gives a platform for storytelling and creating connections, which is a bit like what you're doing with your network. And they have done some great things, but they're constrained by the fact that they're volunteers. They set up a food trail app, which is a great way to promote, but the cost of maintaining apps, they're working with the local tourism body to see if they'll take that on to maintain, but it hasn't been easy. I did ask for some feedback from some of the members. The recommendation was that rather than having a membership base for regional food brand, have it accreditation based. And this is some feedback. You're welcome to read that because it's far too many words for me, but from two of the smaller operators about the how they've found having a regional food brand. As I said, we were too far down our journey for it to be significant for us. But that said, we do support it. I think it's important. This is a couple of other tools that I just think would be really useful for you guys that I just wanted to share. So Farmer Meets Foodie, has anyone heard of that? Yeah, so I'd strongly recommend signing up on that. It's a great way for people to find produce, and it's going to be at least state or nationally based. And then, so what's your story? What actions can you take today? And if you want to get some great imagery and things that you can use as a database to help tell your story, these guys are really reasonable and will actually even help startups with doing that. Honey Atkinson is the photographer and Karen is the stylist, and they're really passionate about local food. So thank you very much. And if you want to see any more about how we tell our story, have a look at our website.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
That's okay.
It's really wonderful.
Hey.
It's wonderful. So we don't really have time for any more questions for Michelle at this stage, but perhaps at 2:30 we could have you could have a quick chat before we have to get going to the airport. So the final section for this afternoon will be on regional branding to determine what's the story of this place. For those participating through the webinar, perhaps you could send your emails through to me at tegan.mcbride@reefcatchments.com. I would like to introduce to the stage Rebel Leader Jade McCauley. Jade is a media marketing and public relations strategist with extensive experience in both public and private sectors. More than a decade in marketing and strategic media roles, Jade followed her passion for supporting regional businesses with the creation of Rebel Marketing and the acquisition of Out of the Blue Marketing. I had actually approached a number of marketing strategists to facilitate this segment. Jade just understood what I was asking for. She really gets it, and most importantly, she gets differentiation. Confident by the end of this sector we'll be clear on our unique selling proposition and a way forward for our upcoming advertising program. Please welcome Jade.
Hi everyone, nice to see you this afternoon. Lots of familiar faces as well. So as Tegan said, I'm Jade from Rebel Marketing, and this afternoon the bit that I'm going to be doing is really just about actually drawing stuff out of you. So it's not so much what I have to say, this session is about what you have to say. So I believe everyone's got the poll everywhere app ready to go. So I'm going to go through a few bits and pieces first, and then we're going to kick into the questions, and I'm going to grill you, and I'm going to get everything I can out of you. So this afternoon, what we wanted to look at is what is great about this region, what makes us unique, and why do people want to buy our produce, whether they're locals or visitors, etc. Sorry, just keep seeing people I know. And the purpose of this is to feed into the Food and Agritourism Strategic Action Plan. I love the names of those things. They're so inspiring. This will basically, so the feedback that you guys give today will be feeding into a marketing campaign that will be run from April to June next year, when the ultimate goal of that campaign, really at the end of the day, is to sell more Mackay Isaac Whitsunday produce, whether it's to locals, visitors, etc. And that will be not me, obviously there'll be Reef Catchments, but that is what we're trying to get out of you today, is your input so that it can be fed into this campaign. So some of the things we've got up here that are part of this strategy that relate to what we're doing this afternoon, just to give you a little bit of a background, is developing that farm to plate marketing brand strategy. So how we can tell our story consistently and tell it really, really well. Creating images and words to express this story. So helping us and locals to live and breathe that story, giving you the tools to help promote what we do as a region, and therefore also help promote what you're doing as well, because obviously this is your story. And then identifying our food heroes and giving them a platform to share their approach so that we can all improve on what we're doing. It's, you know, like Michelle said, it's one of those things that you can only do so much with the time that you have, but the more that you know, the more you can make better use of that time to be doing it for things that can really matter. So what is so great about our region? Oh, I don't have a clicky thing. It's behind me. Oh, good. I'm very organized. So obviously we know that the Greater Whitsunday region has been through some really tough times, and as a region collectively, we've come out a lot tougher because of it as well. Some of those figures that we're seeing that are showing the upswing that's coming through in our economy. For example, you know, big once-off boosts like the Elton John concert delivered $3 million to the region. And then for things like agriculture, forestry and fishing industry altogether across Mackay Whitsunday, they produce 4.1% of the 15 billion in GDP generated by Queensland in the last year. So quite a significant amount is coming out of this region. I mean, but it can always be improved upon. It might not sound like much, but it is a lot, and there's always further that we can, there's always more that we can be doing. As you probably see in the paper, we're beating the Queensland unemployment rate by about, I think it's 3% at the moment. We're below the average, and nearly 5,000 of the jobs in this region are from the agriculture industry. Once again, that's great, but we want to look at how we can improve it. So the saying is to always, is that you? No, that was me. Oops, sorry. So we want to see how we can go bigger, how we can get better, how we can improve as a region to sell our story. And the first part of that is putting our story together. So there's always more opportunity, there's always more we can doing, but how can we capitalize on what we have?